It's day 3 of the World Urban Forum here in Cairo in Egypt. And a lot of the conversation is centering around rapid urbanization and its effects on communities. In South Africa, a huge problem, like you said, is the issue of the backlog of housing, currently sitting at over 3 million. And whichever MEC you talk to, from Limpopo to Mpumalanga to Eastern Cape, one problem remains the same. How do they build adequate housing, especially now with rapid urbanization? I'm joined this morning by Speed, who is the MEC of Mpumalanga. MEC Moloko, we spoke briefly earlier on about the issue of rapid urbanization, how it affects the building of houses. How bad is the issue of backlog of houses in your specific province? And what are the challenges or the reasons behind the slow building of houses back where you come from?
Well, thanks very much for this opportunity. Indeed, in Mpumalanga we stand at the 276,000. That is the backlog. Our biggest challenge, obviously, is the funding model. That's the first issue. The second being some part of the infrastructure, which must be driven by our own municipalities. The third, of course, has been land. Some land belongs to the Makhosi, some land are private. So we've got three big problems that we are faced. But over a period of time, we've managed to purchase some private land, and indeed some state land have been transferred from the provincial, national department of public works, rural development to municipalities, which gave us an opportunity to start to put infrastructure. And as we put infrastructure, we believed our people, because I've seen some part of the province, people building for houses on their own, and for that matter, the big houses. Because remember, government were putting about 40 to 45 square meter in Mpumalanga in particular. In terms of the government policies, 40 square meter. In Mpumalanga were doing 45 square meter, which is quite expensive. It's standing at about 183 as the quantum, which you don't have that money, because we are contesting with a number of important social development, free education, health insurance, etc. But we have encouraged our people to build for themselves. That's why we are servicing land, we are giving the land. Now coming here, we want to see our best model. In particular, Cairo is one area in the Africa that is quite developing. I've seen everywhere I go, there's a lot of massive development that's happening. Now I've asked the question, what is the model? Obviously they are saying they've got more the funding from different models, including some international, World Bank, which of course, those are areas we're going to look as we go back home. But the question is, can we pay back the loan for those people? And secondly, how can we bring the private sector as well, be part of us with partnering? We look all those options because they do have those models here. So we're looking at that model. If we can explore it at home, bring private people, and at the same time, people can start to get and make the banks to fund our people. I think those are areas that we are going to persist that it happens. If we have to go to national parliament to force it, we must even go to the pension fund of a number of pensions that we have at home, companies, that they must make sure that they avail resources for infrastructure development. And I think this is what exactly we'll be exploring as we go back home from what we shall have learned here in Cairo conference.
MEC, also there is the theme this year that it all starts at home, right? The theme for this year's World Urban Forum is that it all starts at home. How big of a challenge is the issue of rapid urbanization, where people now are living in the rural areas of Mpumalanga, which are saying that obviously want better opportunities and now going to the urban areas, and now you've got an influx of people in the urban areas who are having a high demand for electricity, for water and other services. What do you think, what funding model do you think must be implemented, especially now that you've looked at what Cairo is doing? Obviously, it won't be the same because of bylaws, but in terms of what funding models do you think that the government in South Africa must implement to assist with the backlog that currently sits at over 3 million in South Africa as a whole?
Correctly as we said, indeed it will start at home, and this is exactly what we are going to do at home. Because one of the critical issues is to bring back our traditional leaders, bring back our community, our civic movement, to discuss this issue of the housing development at home. And we hope with the model that we have learned here, start at home and we exploit it, I think we can do that. Obviously, as I said earlier, the models of funding, it has to come from various stakeholders that will include government, private initiatives, and even the community themselves. We used to have a program called PHP in the province at national level where people, they are coming forward to say, government, we are putting this, I'm putting this. I think those are the programs that we want to resuscitate them. As we are saying, everything starts at home so that at least community themselves, they can start to know to build for themselves. I've seen here, they don't have the what you call the low-cost housing for the unemployed people. Everybody buys, houses. Government subsidize them. They pay a particular amount of money. I think those are options that we have. Obviously, they might require policy shift and policy changes, and I think those are issues that we'll discuss them as we go back home. We are not the same. Egypt has been in democracy for quite a long time, and obviously Egypt and other countries, they might get another better funding. One of the issues that we're worried about is that we have the United UN World Bank, and we're asking a question, whom are they funding? Because we don't see municipalities, including your big cities like Johannesburg, city of Cape Town, that they are benefiting from this bank. And I think those are areas we'll pursue, because some of the bank are funding here, in Cairo and other areas where Nairobi. And I think those are areas that we'll look into, so we can start to benefit as well as a province, as a country, from the United Banks. So that we are seeing that we are united, we are one community in this big world.
Lastly, MEC, what has been some of your biggest take-home? What would this, perhaps if there's one thing that you could take home? You've been to the various forums and various workshops, and you've seen the development, and especially in developed countries, and how far advanced they are even in terms of their building structure. They are building the new cities that we are speaking about. What is the biggest take-home that you have got now as you go back to your province of Mpumalanga that you'd like to implement back there?
Very good question. You know what? Decision making. In our case, our decision takes long. And when that decision takes long to implement, it takes another years to implement. So that's why we're too slow. Here they make decisions now, they implement it now. So this is what we're doing, we're getting here. That they don't take long. Of course, Egypt, Cairo, a little bit different because it's a military area than our case. But indeed, they make decisions quicker and implement it quicker. And this is what we're taking home. What is it that we can do it and do it now and happens now so that this can be a change and rapidly change?
Well, that was MEC of Mpumalanga, Speed Mashilo, speaking about some of the take-homes he has as he's explored some of the forums here, saying that one thing that has stood out from him is that the member states, the developed countries that are here, are able to take decisions and then implement it, saying that a lot of the work in South Africa is centered around drafting policies, but when it gets to implementation, it's very slow, saying that as he now goes back home in a couple of days when the forum does end, he hopes that the decision-making, implementation of policies, and also trying to create sustainable cities and urban areas that can thrive resiliently despite climate change is key to also building home and also curbing the huge backlog of home building back in South Africa. For now, let's go back to the studio.